Okay. Is everybody here?
I
I
am.
know we're here, but we ain't all there.
Let's
So
see. One,
let's
two,
see.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We got
All right.
21 and we had 26. So we're
Yeah.
missing 5 people.
Yeah. All right. All right. So are we good now?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thank you, Glenda. And thank everybody else who grabbed the line and tried to pull us along.
Yeah. So we will have that for all of our fireside chats and classes, hopefully.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not even going to breathe.
Yeah.
4, 6, 8,
Okay.
10,
Melissa, you
Immediately
had a
going to check my second Rainbow Coalition settings as soon as we get off this call.
okay. Melissa, you had a question. Do you remember what that question was?
I was bearing my very private things that people don't like to talk about in public answer to you. I don't know if I shared too much for everybody,
No.
but it was in reaction to maybe the last like 3 or 4 conversations that we've all had. Some have been just you and me, and some have been as a group with Carlos as well. So I think I was just pulling it all together. But that doesn't mean that everybody here tonight was a part of that. And so I may have shocked some people with my answer, and I didn't mean to just jump that far that fast.
You know, I
I don't
think
know if
we're
it was
missing
personal or
David.
something.
I don't see David on here.
I think we are missing David.
I'm sorry?
Should we wait? Should we wait for him, or should we?
Yeah, because he's the,
Yes.
el ponente de esta noche.
How do we? Want me to text him? Give me a second.
Yeah, please. Maybe he lost the link or something.
Mm.
Technology, huh?
Yeah.
I'm Mala. I'm from NEYL. We're a Young Lords Chicago chapter. And I just wanted to say to Melissa, thank you for sharing and thank you for your vulnerability. And I think it's really important that you share as honestly as you have so far, because that's the way that we learn. We learn from the past, not by glossing it over, not by romanticizing what the past is. We have to learn from what honestly happened. And your story and your account is incredibly valuable. So please don't feel like you're oversharing, at least in this space. And I'm really grateful for you sharing the way that you have.
Yeah.
I agree.
David said he's trying. Hold on. Let me see if he.
Hi, can you send him the link again? Maybe that's all he needs.
Easier.
Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
Here he is.
Okay. Great.
There you are. Okay. We get restarted here, huh?
Yeah. So, Melissa, maybe we can go back to what you were saying, and you had some comments for David. We can continue that way, I would suggest.
Oh, I remember my father and I several times having a conversation about one day you're going to represent the Young Lords. And I was like, I can't do that. I wasn't born during that time. I feel like that would be a violation. I can honor them, but I can't represent. There's so many people who really, this was their story. I can honor them. And he would always say, you are a young lord. Everyone, we are all young lords. It's something that I've heard a couple of his other friends laugh and say, like, that's what he would say. He would tell everybody in the room, you are all young lords. We are all young lords. And I think what it really meant to him was, this is being of service is one part of it, but why we serve, who we're serving, is because we're all experiencing it. So we are all connected.
Yeah. I think that was the thing. That was a sense. If I remember, there was a sense of urgency. There was a sense that we were that we had to do something, I think that was the idea. We couldn't just stand by and as all these events because we were seeing the connection. We were reading, we were seeing the international implications of the different thing and seeing that we
Excuse me.
that it was necessary, that was urgent, and that we would have it would that it really it was difficult to what the sacrifice it would mean or what whatever, but the idea of developing those relationships and and, and doing whatever needed to be done. I think that was the point, and you try to overcome all the difficult situations that we're in, but somehow we manage. Somehow, despite all the problems and all the difficulties, we rallied people and we survived, and people came. And the biggest, like that we wasn't alone because we received a lot of support. The reason why at least when I see myself like, why am I alive today where other people are not here, and that especially those that died for directly being participating in events and or were murdered by the police or whatever, that people came to our assistance. I mean, whenever we had we were not be able to do the things that we did unless people did come. We couldn't have a clothes drive unless people bought the clothes in. We couldn't have the breakfast programs unless the store owners, who even were reluctant, gave us the food. We couldn't do the programs because we were able to do the lepos because the people we were able to make those connections with hospital workers and other people, that came in. There were people in the neighborhood, when we were running, after the garbage offensive and whatever. I mean, they just pulled us out of the street and put us into their homes, So it was a time when something needed to be done, and there was and people just stood up. And I think this is something that keeps me going, that even in the most difficult time that you see people standing up, and doing what is right, and not everybody does different things, but somehow it all comes together, and we're able to continue, and we're able to achieve some success.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
David,
Go ahead.
no, David, how much time did you spend in New York and Chicago? Were you able to see the functioning, the working of both groups, the New York group and the Chicago group? And
Oh yeah, no, I was. I saw the functioning of the group before I left, and I had pretty good relationships. And again, I wasn't. That was my senior year. That I, that the opportunity came for me to do like the college, going to New York, and so it happened really quickly because it was 1969. That was the summer of 1969, and there was a program that I had to attend to at Old Westbury, and it so happened that some of the people that were there in that school, like that were also involved in doing this project in El Barrio. So I just went along with them, And when it became time to do the activities that we are, and people thought about the idea of joining the Young Lords, I said, sure, yeah, that's we can do that. We can go and when the group was really forming, people wanted to be part of the Young Lords, and then we made the trip to Chicago. And met with Cha Cha and became the the Young Lord chapter of New York, and that was pretty much it all happened very quickly in that summer of 1969, and things just kept moving like at a breathtaking pace. I mean, we were just going from to to opening the office, to doing the breakfast program, engaging with the People's Church, trying to get them to do that. And we started opening branches quickly. I mean, people came from Bridgeport. People came from Philadelphia. People were coming from Hartford, from Buffalo, from Long Island. And we were, running our PE classes, having people come, having, for some time I was the organizer, or that time was a field marshal thing, that title or whatever. But, I was going out to these places and trying to establish those offices, and we would go back and forth and bring people to the political education classes, and people will stay, spend weeks, or months or whatever, and then go back. And we had some people that were then assigned officially to go to those areas to organize the branches, and until we got to the idea that I think the split also, and the separation, we were seeing some of the deficiencies and even the messaging and the people who were going. I mean, the whole idea of the question of who is, this whole idea of the lumpen proletariat became a real big issue, and that how do we identify that we are that. And it was not an exclusion of one or the other, but it was the question: how do we address like the work as part of the working class? That this is a working class movement. That essentially that's who we were. I mean, there was a lot of people from different experience. There was people that had that street experience, but then we had a very diverse group of people. There were people that were had either were in college or were completed college. There were people that did not attend college. There were other people that and this idea of that we felt something similar, that we had to overcome the differences, that we had to overcome, and that we had to come together and carry these to do these events. And a lot of people sacrificed a lot. And, some people dropped out of school in order to be full-time. Some people continue going to school. Some people continue working. Some people have families, so they would, go to work, and after work, come to the office and do whatever. So it just sort of amplified, and it attracted a lot of people. And then there was a question, the big ideological stuff, as it became more ideological and more studying, more, I guess Marxist, economic and political theory. Then there was, a shift, of how exactly do we apply this. And at the same time that we were under tremendous amount of pressure from the establishment, with cartel program that we're constantly trying to deal with the fact that there were people trying to sabotage the organizations, and we were relatively successful for a period of time. But as the organization began to adopt a more pure, let's say, ideological position, it became more and more isolated. And the idea of going to do work, sending people to go working in factories or whatever to organize in the workplace, that we were not able to make that transition. A lot of time one thing was pitted against the other, and the decision to try to make this thing to go to Puerto Rico and open up a front in Puerto Rico, and that sort of, we kept sort of diminishing our own forces, engaging in things that we're overextending ourselves. And that opened up more room for, agents and provocateurs to come in and to create more dissension. Until the end that they're targeted, by targeting specific people, and engaging in relationships with them, and they begin to have like a lot of influence. And the thing that to me is that to a certain extent that it degenerated into like a more cultish type of environment, and and cliques, and certain people following, certain people, um, and to the extent that the reason behind, that we would have, committee meetings, and we would have meetings, and there were actual discussions where people expressed their ideas, and at the end, we were able to end the meeting with some kind of definite conclusion, and even if we disagree with, we were still able to carry out, the things that we set out to do. But as time went on, it became more and more difficult, And I mean, when I saw that it was a certain point where I felt, and I don't know if it's, just based on the information that I was, accumulating, being in the position that I was in, but I felt that we were being more and more isolated from the people. That we had closed the office in El Barrio, we were into this thing about having all these meetings, and you're repeating, talking, and it just felt like somehow we were losing touch, from what our original mission was. And for me, leaving was, at the time that I left, I mean, perhaps I could have been able to do differently or whatever, but leaving gave me the opportunity to be in a different or see things differently, And it was hard to adjust after spending all the time that I spent, in developing the organization and being part of the organization. And even for a long time, I think other people, after I reconnected with people, there's still a lot of very emotional things, and very sometimes bitter things that happen, with people that I guess we had a lot of expectations, and that and sometimes we tended to be, there was to be quick on making decisions on people and judging people, and the idea that when you're in that situation, that rather than have the conversation and the dialogue, for some time when people left the organizations, I mean, we had a pretty good idea that this was voluntary. You voluntarily join. When you're in the organization, you follow the rules, you do, whatever, and you're subjected to the discipline. But if at any time you decided to leave or to whatever, there was no retribution or whatever. People just left, even if it was like after there was like a dispute over a disagreement, and even if it was like a few people left, in groups sometimes, because sometimes there would be people that would organize, and they will, you have small groups of people, who had a disagreement, and if they didn't get their way, or they have, whatever their grievances were, they didn't see any solution, so they left. There was no like repercussion. There was no thing of degenerating, of attacking them, or beating them up, or torturing them. But I think as the time passed, I mean, and this happened with the Black Panther Party, during the time when when all this factional split taking place in the Black Panther Party between the Huey P. Newton, Eldridge Cleaver, and all these people, I mean, of actually torturing people, and accusing people of being police. In some cases, it might have been true or not. But I mean, there were cases where we were able to identify people that were police and whatever. And we did everything possible to get as much information as in. But we realized that, at the end, it was just a question of educating ourselves and educating the people. That if we would have taken actions against those people, that would have, the response would have been, that would have jeopardized a lot of different things. That would have just bring more pressure and more exposure, to the organization. But as I think, as the influence of, of this sort of pure I'm more radical. I'm more, this, my idea is the only idea, you know? Or if you don't follow this particular person to everything that they say and do, that somehow you're a traitor, you're this and the other. And that was that, I mean, that created a lot of problems. And it took a long time for people who were in different positions on all those different times to sort of realize, what happened, and to heal and to be able to come back and to reestablish, because my big thing was to at least see Yoruba, who I went to school, who was part, and when I found out that he was already ill and he was in a nursing home, to go. And it was like when to see me and another comrade go there, and he was so open, you know, to the idea. I mean, he still was a little nervous when he would mention somebody that had conflict with him was going to come. He just made a face like, what? But it was that time. It was like people are realizing that all these things that happened in the past, that we can learn from them, and that we have to move on. There's a healing process. I think that's what I'm trying to say, and that we have to go through that healing process in order to gain knowledge from that experience and for our own personal well-being. Because I think, for me, I'm still traumatized by a lot of those different things. My level of trusting people, and not that this is just specific to the young lords, but other experiences. But those are really things that go with you, and that you have to reinvent yourself. And a lot of people were able to do that, to continue at different capacity, doing different stuff. But I think it basically it is a healing process, and I think different people went through it, and now, as we are older and hopefully a little bit wiser, that we can find, to go past those things, and appreciate the good, see the bigger picture, the impact, the good things that came out of it, which I think sometimes, you just have a bitter taste and you just want to be distance yourself. But I mean, the over time, we saw the impact that it had, and and that people not, try to rescue that history, and put it into perspective, that this is part of a political struggle that we have been going through, that our people have been going through, that we have been struggling against oppression, and that there's always a price, that is paid, and we paid the price, and hopefully we learned something. At least I did.
David, were there parallel experiences with the Chicago Young Lords as you just described with the New York, or was it a whole different dynamic there?
My visits to there, I just saw there was a lot of disarray at that time, and that it was hard to have to have discipline, because we were trying to be a disciplined organization despite all our problems. I mean, we did, but we had created like a sort of like an institutional structure. We had the newspaper. We had and we had our different ministries or different committees or whatever, people sections that were involved and doing activity. People were held accountable. And there was a difference between because different people were different experience, but it was an idea of looking at the people that sort of gravitated, and then finding what things they can do better, and respecting that, and appreciating, and then we would defend each other. I think that was the critical thing, to the extent, whatever. But I mean, everybody had to fight, If we had to fight, we all fought, if we ate, everybody ate. We try to take care of each other. We try to make sure people have places to do things. We created our own, thing for, our meals. And to that extent, I think we were very successful. And I think there was a lot of difference between what was happening. But I cannot speak about what was happening in Chicago because after I left, I would only come to just meetings or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. That my experience was the time that I spent, and the young Lord, and that became like the people that I, participated in some of those activities. And I'm grateful for them, because we were able to do the things, and basically, some of us are still alive, And,
Yeah, and I
and-
want to, okay, sorry. I'd like to just say something about Chicago. There was some dissension in terms of, Young Lords and Black Panthers when they came into the coalition. We came into the coalition as Young Patriots, being from the South,
Mhm.
with our certainly with our background, and especially in the Black community. But we were revolutionaries, and that's what bonded us together. And Cha-Cha, the Young Lords and the Black Panthers and the Young Patriots had people to drop out.
Yeah.
Couldn't work with each other because of racism and differences and things like that. But Cha-Cha, he was willing to deal with that. He said, and Fred Hampton said, if you can't deal with that, then you can't deal with the revolution because it's going to take everybody.
Yeah.
And even Hampton said to me, he said, I know you're still racist, but you're revolutionary, and you can get past that.
Mhm.
That's the way Cha-Cha was in Chicago, and that's why we had such respect, for the Young Lords and the Black Panthers. We were all pretty well brutalized and the same, but in our minds, he was he's a pretty towering guy. Cha-Cha was. And we were able to convince other people and work with them, culturally against racism and identify with the commonalities that we had. That's what held us together.
Yeah, I think that was it, and there was always different, because I think that the issues are that that you have to put limits on certain things, especially when people are engaged in things that are unscrupulous or that are hurting other people, so that you have to say, you can't be doing that, and consider yourself, if you're a revolutionary, this is not appropriate. And that is the question of being able to maintain that discipline and to do that in a way that it is not an attempt to humiliate the person, which sometimes criticism can take that form, but really positive criticism, to help the person overcome that situation, but that you address it, and you and to the extent that we would do that, we were better for it, and when we failed to do that, and then it had like some real serious consequences. And I think as time went on, as you lose more, in military terms, they use the command and control. You lose that ability to actually have discipline over the people in the organization. And that create, because when you do that, and then that creates that gap between the people and the activists, because then people start associating, everyone with the behavior of one or two people, and that the organization's ability to respond to that, to deal with that internal discipline in a way that that does not interfere with the mission. And I think that and for us to be relatively inexperienced amateurs, dealing with complex organizational skills, and and be able to keep, you know, to keep going,
Mhm.
to keep continuing doing the work. And for the time that we were able to do that, I think that was a great deal of we accomplished a lot more than probably we expected.
Absolutely. I know we had to fight, and Cha-Cha, Young Lords had to fight even other community organizations,
Mm-hmm.
that thought that they had the answers, but never
Mm-hmm.
would, give service to the community, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so that was always a problem too, because, the cops were always on their side. And
Mm-hmm.
so that would bring, a lot of the police brutality, the heat down on us. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, in Young Lords, everybody was getting pretty well, their share of abuse and beatings.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was it was deathly out there. Let me tell you, and people were getting killed.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, out
Chicago
there.
is very brutal. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
whole different. So I mean, we had a lot of different things that we went through, and but it's a little different, in terms of
yeah,
how things were at that time,
yeah,
and the fact that I think, and I think that it was a very large, a diverse group of people. There were people that had experience in the streets, that were part of it. But the Chicago gang, the New York gangs have pretty much ended. You know, a lot of the people that were like in the gangs had, they were not there. There were still some were in prison. Some of them came back, and some of them had been politicized. But the gang, uh, the existence of the gang structure and all that was not there. Well, in Chicago, it still continued for a long time. I mean, and there was that rift, you know. I mean, the between people who felt, that they were like the streets, and that they would, they didn't have respect for younger people or students who they considered to be not able to fight. But over time, they saw that they that they stood up, you know, so we defended each other. We somehow managed, and even after the organization disintegrated, I mean, there was attempts for people to keep in contact, and to still continue doing, and different people continue doing, different projects, and other people, when try to, like myself, I just return back home and try to be, live my life and reconnect with my family. But
yeah. Did the COINTELPRO force anyone in New York to go underground or leave the state? Or
mhm, yeah.
did they put the pressure on you?
Well, I mean, I left. I mean, I was pretty aware of what was going on. I was fortunate that I was able to move, and that I had left the organization before some of these other things started to happen, where actually, people were attacked and people were beaten and accused, and that degenerated, and I. And to me, New York was like a big experience, there's a big difference, in just Chicago and New York in terms of just being very congested, the trains. And so I found myself going to Newark. And Newark felt a little bit more like New York, sort of, it was still like neighborhoods. And I did some community work there with the Casa de Don Pedro. And, and it sort of helped me sort of adjust, to trying to get back to at least some kind of thing, trying to go find work, try to go to school, try to see if I can finish my schooling until the situation. My grandparents were older, so they said, if you want to spend time with your family, with your grandparents, because I was raised by my grandparents, you got to come back to Chicago. So I came back, and but a lot of that time I stayed away from a lot of things, you know. But I was constantly being harassed, you know. Any place that I got a job, I mean, they would show up and start talking about my previous history, uh, and I would lose the job. So just even to find work was difficult. And until I guess finally they got tired and they just, you know,
Yeah.
you know, but they keep doing everything possible. I mean, so I guess, and I was, you know, I have families and I have that look out for me, you know, so I was blessed.
Yeah. How did you go about doing recruiting? You know, and getting new members.
I mean, people would, anytime that we had like some of the events, after the garbage offensive, after the People's Church, you know, people heard about what we were doing and people came. People showed up at the office and we interviewed them and we tried to process them. We put them in the political education classes and assigned them to work. And the newspaper was, you know, at least the bottom thing that everybody, you know, was involved in distributing the newspaper, you know. And people had, you know, people were doing stuff for the breakfast program, you know, that we would integrate them into whatever different things that we were going. But the political education classes, I think, were really an important thing, at least, and having a common voice, you know, in terms of what you know, what our purpose was, and having, you know, a sense of a broader picture. I think, I keep going to that because I think that is sometimes when you're in a situation, if you don't see the broader thing, and then you can react, you can see the small things can become really big. And I think that's part of the ability to see, you know, to be inclusive, you know, and to feel that it is possible and not being threatened, you know, or be overwhelmed by the influx of people that are coming in, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well, Cha-Cha, conversations that I would have with him about organizing, and you know, we would agree that if you're going to get one member on each block, you know, to support what you're doing, then you know it's a success.
Yeah.
And we didn't expect, you know, the whole community to come out.
Yeah.
But we did expect, you know, a certain portion, and yeah, that was important for the political education at that point to you know, to educate people what's going on. But most of the people were already educated in Chicago. You know, I mean, they've been beat down so long, you know, and there really wasn't anyone to really stand up for them very much. And you know, the young lords in Chicago did. They you know they took over the McCormick Seminary. They were doing, you know, all kinds of marches and food programs and that kind of stuff. And it was certainly an organization to look up to, you know, and it was certainly an organization to follow, you know. And you know, the relationship with, you know, with the Panthers were it was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, you know, something that was necessary. And then you get these hillbillies involved, you know, and that really scared, I think, Mayor Daley. And that's
I think that the whole that, I mean, even looking at the reaction of like the right wing movement in the United States, and a lot of these people that have entered into, you know, supporting these basically fascist, you know, movement. They looked at the movement and were very threatened by it. I mean, they saw their and you know, you know, and they were, rather than looking at the movement as a social necessary social movement to deal with the inadequacy that are in a society, they became even more threatened.
Sure.
And 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 I think our ability to actually communicate, to keep a clear message of what exactly were the things that we were talking about, so they would not hijack and just say, we're the terrorists, we're, putting these labels rather than addressing the issues, keeping the issues that we were dealing with. And if we're dealing with issues of of dealing with police brutality, you are offering like some solution. You're dealing with, okay, let's have some kind of community policing. We're not saying that we don't want any police. We're saying we want the police to do what they're supposed to. They should be serving and protecting the people. They should not be just protecting big business. They should not just be protecting, people that are on the payroll, whatever the corrupt things is. I think people were seeing the corruption and saying, we want an alternative. We want something better. We deserve something better.
Mm.
And this is not something that we are begging or this is our right.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
live, to live free of violence, to have opportunities, for our families to be able to have provide for yourself, to have a decent job, a decent place to live,
Right.
So and the idea that when you start labeling people and calling different things, it kind of diminishes that, and it's an attempt to isolate, that movement because they were very threatened by it.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much. I'd like to, we could open it up here to a few questions.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
we're just at our limit here, but I think we can, we can take some questions, but I want to thank you, David, and thank you, Melissa, for coming
Yeah,
on.
I'm glad that you guys invited me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless people need to go, I think we can add at least another 10 minutes because we lost that much time trying to figure out how to get the captions on.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Any questions from anyone here?
Just put up your
Okay.
hand or.
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, thank you, David. Thank you, Melissa. I think that, especially coming from, a Chicano perspective, I've always admired the Young Lords. And I spent time in New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. I went to college out there. So the Boricuas really got me up on my history. They slapped me around and they taught me some history that I never knew. So, I really appreciate that. But as far as when it comes to armed struggle today is different than would have been in the 60s and 70s. What would you say to those who might call for armed struggle today? Would the message be the same? Would it be different? How has it changed?
I would say the message is that we're at a different time, and that even that we have to review some of the positions on the question of civil disobedience, the impact that it has on developing a social movement. The idea of armed self-defense. Is was something that was advanced because of I think this was like that we have a right to defend ourselves, especially when with the attacks by the Klan and these other groups, and the fact that the police was not doing its job of protecting, our rights to peacefully demonstrate and advocate for our rights, and we have to keep the reaching out and trying to organize people, use the peaceful means to mobilize people, to educate people, At the same time, I think sometimes the rhetoric, you know, of you know, of armed conflict and violence, you know, and making that the cornerstone, you know, of everything that you do or say, you know, become can, rather than being can be negative in the sense that you're scaring people, you know, and we have to be in a situation that we're, you know, putting forth things that are not radical ideas, you know. The idea that the government is supposed to be serving the people, that the people who are elected are being paid to protect the people, you know, and that they should be accountable, you know. And the same way that each of us is asked, are being required to be accountable, that they should be accountable, you know, and that we exhaust all the legal means and all the means that we have to bring those questions to bear, to push those questions on the consciousness of the people. And that I don't, you know, it's possible that if we continue in the path that we're going, and I think the far right is pushing for this idea of that there has to be a civil war, you know, and of course they want to, you know, be the instruments of violence and push, and people have to be prepared to defend themselves. But that we can mobilize, we can put a message out to reach out to the broader people, to reach out to veterans, to reach out to people who are in law enforcement, who swore an oath to defend the Constitution, you know, to defend the Constitution, and the things in the Constitution includes the rights of people, you know. You know, it includes due process, which now is being challenged, which is always, you know, on a massive scale, and it's not just particular to deny due process to the you know, to the black and the brown and indigenous people, you know, but you know, we want to reach out to those people and see that it's not just issue of black and brown people. It's a whole society, you know, that we want to create a better society. We want to create a better place for everybody, you know, and that that you know, how do we message that? You know, how do we stay true to defending the rights of armed struggle and defending the rights of armed self-defense, at the same time to make sure that the message is clear of what the ultimate goals are, and that we are you know, advocating for the people, you know, and that we want to create a society where everyone can live in peace and harmony, you know, and we detest, and we don't want to create a space where there's no dialogue, where violence and corruption dominates everything. And we have to do that by our own examples, through the organizations that we create, through the communities that we build, and have them be a testament, you know, to the mission, you know, and all the labeling and anything, all the negative stuff will just fall apart, you know, if we can do those things, and if we can stay true to the message, you know, that we're about being of service, that we're not about hating people, we're about promoting, you know, love, kindness. We're about compassion. This is what's motivating us to do the things that we do and to step up and to make sacrifices. And we're not doing this, you know, because of just we're Puerto Rican and you're black or you're white. We're doing this because we're part of a human race. You know, we're part of, you know, there is we the people, and broaden it out, making the message clear. I had an idea that this thing I keep advocating, saying, we have to see the bigger picture and keep that bigger picture in our minds and keep the bigger picture in our message. And sometimes, even when we were talking about the coquí, and the issue in Puerto Rico when people were talking about using pesticides against the coquí, that opened up like a broader picture to the Puerto Rican, those in diaspora in Puerto Rico, to come together to protect our culture, to protect ourselves, to create a better space and protect our environment. The picture that was taken, and I remember, you know, when they took the picture of from the moon, and there was a picture of the Earth. A powerful picture, because we're seeing that here we are. We're spinning people living on a spinning rock. And we are here together. So there is one planet, there is one people, and we have to choose. Are we gonna promote hate, or are we gonna promote love? And I think love will win. And by any means necessary.
Okay. Any other questions here? All right. Well, this has been very, very powerful from you two, and I've learned a lot from it myself.
Yes.
And,
Same here.
and I think, yeah, and we definitely look forward to getting you back sometime, and hope. I know Melissa is with us. She is going to be working with us, and we hope that David can come back sometime, or come back to any of these fireside chats.
No, I appreciate you inviting me, and
yeah, we can put you on the list. You get the messages, get the information, and well, the next fireside chat is going to be on Tuesday. Okay, and what it's going to be is about a new film that came out that Glenda. I'm sure Glenda can tell us about it a little bit. Glenda and her husband Jesse put together a documentary film about the history of country music and how unions, and other cultures have, influenced country. That it's not really, it wasn't really a right-wing, music, but a lot of that's what it's turned out to. Glenda, can you just give us a little synopsis of that, if you don't mind?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for this great meeting. It was really fantastic and insightful, educational. So the film is kind of unpacking country music to take back the story that it's the music of the working class and just possess people of all colors. And it's not the voice of the right wing. And it's, a friendly film. It's humorous in parts, and it's not meant to put off people who might be like right-wing country music stars, aka my sisters, but more like educate them also, like it's a fun, uplifting film. And really the ultimate message of the film is that creativity belongs to all of us, and that this history is very rich and varied, and it's important to look at that.
Yes.
We'll play some clips from the film next week.
It is excellent. I've seen it. As a matter of fact, Glenda and Jesse came to Alabama and premiered it here. It's been around the country, and it's a non-profit film that they encourage organizations to use it if they want to raise money, but they're not allowed to really charge for it, in terms of theaters and things like that. And I have local musicians at the time doing the music, and I think it's time we start sharing, some of our culture. To start off, I'd like to be able to get in, and share some other cultures, music, customs. I think it's very important for us to do that.
Sure.
So we can better understand. When I went to college, we had what was called the International day. We had students there from all different countries.
Mm-hmm.
They bring food and, and dance and sing. And, that's the way we got to know each other.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we got to do. I think with this, it would be better to do it in person, but since we can't do that, we can certainly do some things in Zoom. So,
yeah, and I'm looking forward. I mean, you guys, if I'm here. I try to travel as, make a little thing. I'm still working. At some point, I'm going to have to stop working, but I really have benefit a lot by reconnecting with people through Facebook, through these chats, which I don't do that often. But anytime anybody's in in this area, I'm available. We can go have coffee. We could, do whatever.
Yep.
But it's good to re-cement those relationships person to person, face to
Yes.
face whenever possible. Because
Yes.
we don't know what's coming.
Thank you.
So we have to be ready for whatever's coming, and those relationships and those networks is what's gonna, create the new situation that we want. Something.
Yes.
Just,
And I'd
just
also like to say that the Fireside Chats belongs to everybody. We won't be the only ones doing it. I know Troy Smith from Tennessee Tech is going to be coming in and doing some interviews with people. If you want to do one or two with somebody, please let us know. It belongs to you, and you can, talk to people and do exactly what we're doing here.
Okay.
Okay.
And it belongs to everybody.
And I want to thank David for joining tonight as well. But I also appreciate you having me, including me. These chats they're very powerful, and they've been really inspiring. And I want to thank all of you also. It was exciting to see everybody here tonight.
Thank you, and I'm glad
you.
to see you.
Yeah.
And I did go to the funeral, and I heard your story, and I heard you talking, and I can feel the love, and the desire to grow from this experience, to heal. I think we all need to. We are in a learning process, in a transformative process, and that we're healing in that process, and that and I'm very thankful for all these experiences and all the young, like I interacted a lot with the young patriots in New York, and I appreciate all, the support and everything that we did. And I said I don't have any access to grind with anybody. I might not agree with everything, and people might agree with me, but I have a lot of respect for that time and for the people who made the sacrifice. And we're there in the trenches with me.
We're there again.
Hi just to clarify, because you said it was Tuesday. I thought it was going to be on Thursday. So it's
Tuesday, right?
Tuesday,
Glenda?
same time, 8:30?
Yeah, is that right, Glenda? It's going to be with Glenda. And,
Yeah,
yes.
it's Tuesday this. Wait, actually, let me take a look.
Yes. Yeah.
Tuesday the 3rd.
Okay. So so you guys send me the email, and I'm getting used to this. So I'll try to get myself, because I thought about. I know that it was something that I need to do, and it's a good way to keep in contact with people, and to stay informed and continue building the network that I think we all need for this situation.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
And I'm
We
very
appreciate your
thankful
presence today.
I'm very thankful for the young people that's here now. I mean, anybody that's below 50 is young to me. So, I'm really happy to see all these young people.
Glenda, any clarification on date and time?
Yeah, it's on Tuesday, June 3rd, as I said. Yeah.
8:30?
8:30. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so everybody else could make it.
Yeah, just send me the link, and I'll try to, and I'll make everything possible to be there. Because usually, if I work, I'll just try to do it right after I get out of work. Because if it's at work, I usually get out at I work a 12-hour shift, so I
Yes.
can do it right after that, after 7:30.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a
All
great
right.
weekend.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, and all power to the people.
Power to the people.
On Hantiatu.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Bye bye.
All power. Good night.
All right.
What do we get?
Okay, leave.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. We'll talk.
That's right. I'm recording, so
Okay.
I'm not gonna get off until everybody leaves.
How do I go?
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.